Well, welcome everyone to Messy Church. We want to start by saying we really miss you, and we know that it's not the same as being able to be here at the church, doing the crafts and the games and the activities, and of course, the fantastic food. But we are thankful that we can at least meet in this way with you, and we do trust that this is going to be a great time together. And actually, time is our theme for this month. And so we'd like to set you a little challenge, and that is to count the clocks and timepieces that you can see throughout the course of this video. And if you could then email through your answers to us, we will let you know next month if you were right. We've got a great lineup this afternoon for you, and Nikki is going to tell you all about it.
So first up today, we have Sam, who is going to be sharing something very intriguing with us. Next, if you'd like to get those creative juices flowing, Bev, our craft genius, has prepared some wonderful arts and crafts to show us. If you'd like to strain that brain, then I've got some quizzes and challenges and mazes, and you can access these and the link to the crafts in the description below. After that, we have Ryan, who's going to be sharing one of our favorite Messy Church worship songs, and we're really looking forward to that. Then, from Barry, you're going to be hearing a story that you'll never have heard before. And lastly, Sue will be blessing all of us with the family devotion.
So we hope that that is something you can really be excited about. And now we go over to Sam.
Hi everyone, I really hope you're enjoying the sunshine and keeping yourselves safe. I hope you enjoyed Charlotte's talk last month about how worshipping and spending time with God can help us see Him clearer. Today I want to talk to you about time and how we spend it. Okay, here I have a large vase and some mini Easter eggs left over from last month. I'm going to put these eggs into this vase. Okay. Do you think this vase is full? It looks pretty full to me. But here I have some wood chips. Now, if this vase was full, these wood chips wouldn't be able to fit in here. But let's see. Well, that's interesting. Do you think the vase is full now? Well, here I have some small grains of sand. Let's see if these will fit into the vase. Okay, now the vase is getting full. But I think there might be room for one more thing. Here's a cup of tea. Okay, now the vase is full. I'm using this vase to represent the time we have, and everything inside the vase is how we choose to spend it. Okay? The eggs are the big important things to us, such as the time we spend with God, our family, our friends, the things we're passionate about and we treasure. If we lost everything and only had these big things remaining, then our lives and the way we spend our time will still be rich and full. The wood chips represent other important things, like school, the time we spend playing with our toys, playing on our video games and reading. And the sand is the time we spend on everything else. It represents the small things. If we decided to pour the sand into the vase first, then there wouldn't be enough room left for the eggs and the wood chips. Now our lives are the same. If we choose to spend all our time and energy on the small things, then we won't have room for the bigger things that hold much more importance to us, like spending time with God and going to church with our family. Make sure you pay attention to the eggs. These things are very important and help us be happier. Spend time with our families. Spend time with our parents. Help your mummy or daddy do the cooking or weed the garden. Spend time with our brothers or sisters or cousins. Make sure we visit or call our grandparents to tell them we love them. Pray to God. Tell him about our days. And go to church to worship him with our friends and family. Focus on the eggs first. These are the things that matter to us most. You might want to write down the things you've been doing with your time lately and see if they really are the important things. Okay, and whether you might want to change how you're spending your time. You could write down the important things in your life and remember that the rest is just a bunch of sand. Now, thank you for listening to me today, and I hope this helps you think about how you are spending your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of Messy Church and enjoy making the crafts that Bev has so wonderfully put together and listening to Barry's talk for us this month. Oh, just before I go, you might be wondering what the cup of tea was for. Now, the cup of tea was here to show us that no matter how full we think our lives are, okay, no matter how full they get, there is always room for a cup of tea with friends.
Hello, this month we're exploring another precious gift that God gives us, and that is time. We read in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. And we're going to explore this a bit more with the crafts and activities that we have for you this month. You will find the details of each craft in the links provided. We've tried to use items that you may already have at home, but if you don't have a particular item, I'm sure you can find a workaround. One of the crafts this month is thinking about the fact that God says that there is a season for every activity. We're going to make a tree that will show all 4 seasons at once, allowing us to think about what happens at different times and what God provides for us in each of the seasons. For this craft, there is a video you can watch to show you how to make it. This is the one I made. There is also a paper plate clock that you can make, but if you don't have a paper plate, don't worry, just use a circle of card. Again, there is a video you can watch on how to make this. This is my paper plate clock. How we spend our time is important. How much time do we spend with God? Our prayer activity this month helps us think about this, and there's details in the written links. I've noticed a lot of dandelion clocks around recently and remembered that you are meant to blow the seeds away to work out the time, which is always a bit of fun. Dandelion clocks are our painting craft this month. Do you know how many clocks you have around your home? Most homes do not just have a traditional clock that will tell you the time, but perhaps a TV or phone as well, and other items. There's an activity to find as many clocks and other things that can tell the time as you can around your home. You can make this into a competition with other people in your home if you like. What is your most unusual or favourite clock? This is mine. Can you tell what time the time is? If you've been to a messy church when we have been able to meet at Chiltern Church, you will know that we end with a meal. And on each table we have a card with some questions or things to do relating to that month's theme. Unfortunately, we're not able to cook for you this month, but we have a mealtime card for you to use with your own meal at home this month. You might just want to print it out. Have a look at the links for the craft and videos and instructions, and if you're able to take any photos of your finished items, then we would love to see them. I'm now going to do the food challenge. Can I manage to wait and not chew this fruit pastel? Happy crafting and exploring this month's themes of precious things, time.
Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He's higher than a skyscraper, and He's deeper than a submarine. He's wider than the universe and beyond our wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He's higher than a skyscraper, and He's deeper than a submarine. He's wider than the universe and beyond my wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. And He holds us in His hands. And He holds us in His hands.
Welcome to this afternoon's Messy Church story. It's all about a clock called Cornelius, and it's a story I wrote some time ago. Have you ever watched a watchmaker or clockmaker at work? It's absolutely fascinating. They're so skillful, they're so wonderfully exciting to see each step along the way. In a small workshop, down an even smaller lane, Paradise Lane, there lived and worked a clockmaker. He made watches, clocks and timepieces of all kinds. But there was one very special clock that brought immense joy to him and to his assistant. He had made a large clock, a clock to stand proudly at the busy local station, a clock that had taken a long time to make, a clock of real precision, and he named him Cornelius. One evening, the clockmaker placed his kind hands on Cornelius's shiny cheeks and looked into his happy face. "The time has come for you, dear Cornelius, to do the job for which you were made. We shall take you to the main line railway station, and you'll be placed above the entrance and be seen by everyone who enters and leaves the station. They will admire you and look up to you, and you'll be able to help them keep time in so many ways." As Cornelius listened, he felt very happy. He did seem a little sad later as he was collected by the clockmaker, and he did shed a few tears as the clockmaker's assistant loaded him into the van. But these were tears of fondness. He was sad to be leaving the shop. While it was still light, Cornelius, who was in the back of a van, felt the van come to a stop. He was unloaded carefully and placed down on the pavement. He could see very little, but he did know he was in very safe and very capable hands. He stood on the pavement a short while, resting against a red brick wall at the station entrance. He could just see the words on the wall across the street, a sign which said, "No parking." Moments later, he felt himself being lifted, and slowly he rose into the air. Its still warmth made him feel good inside. The clockmaker set Cornelius in place, and his assistant made the last careful adjustments. Then they took down their ladders and stood on the pavement, gazing up at what they'd done. They were pleased. "The station master and his staff will care for you now," the clockmaker said reassuringly. "He and his staff will clean you and keep you in fine working order. They will watch over you for a long time. Farewell, dear friend." Bong! "Goodbye," chimed Cornelius. "Goodbye." The clockmaker's van pulled away and faded slowly into the shadows of the afternoon. Cornelius was left alone, excitedly waiting. The next morning, as the sun crept slowly into the sky, Cornelius noticed that the greyness of the streets was being slowly replaced by a faint red glow. He could hear the birds singing, announcing that the day was about to truly begin. He could see clearly those tall, imposing buildings, which had been just silhouettes during the night. And beyond them in the distance, he could make out grassy fields. He noticed that the station itself was set on a small hill and that passengers went down a long flight of steps to get to the platforms below. He saw the tracks of the railway slope gently into the valley nearby. His eyes went this way and that, trying to make sense of everything around him. As he did so, the city was now beginning to burst into life, as if it were a giant flower opening its petals to the light and warmth of the sun. And it wasn't long before the first commuters were making their way up the station steps. Cornelius looked on eagerly. The first to go through the large glass doors of the station entrance was a smart man with a large bristling moustache. He looked up at the new station clock, glanced at his watch and said, "Wow, fine, fine clock," and he walked on. He was followed by a pretty fair-haired lady who followed. She stopped, saying how splendid the clock looked against the rich red brickwork behind. As the days passed, Cornelius became used to the times of most feverish activity, the rush hours in the morning and the evening, where many people rushed up the station steps. He saw them scamper down the stairs onto the station platforms and eagerly find their way onto the many trains which came and went throughout the day. As the days passed, the passengers began to take Cornelius more and more for granted. Even the station master seemed to get busier and busier and visited Cornelius far less frequently. Cornelius, for his part, was beginning to feel very lonely and neglected. But it was at 8 o'clock on a fine summer's evening that Cornelius noticed 2 children standing on the station steps below him. The station was very quiet. Soon they were joined by a group of youths. Cornelius was hoping that they would speak to him, but instead of that, what he was now hearing began to make him feel very nervous indeed. They were talking to each other for a little while, and then one young girl turned to her companion, a boy of about 15. She pointed up at Cornelius and then carried on talking to the youth. They then turned to the younger children. "Go on, do it," said the youth teasingly. "He ain't got what it takes," said the girl. "Chicken," continued the youth, laughing at the unfortunate victim of his abuse. And they carried on teasing him. The smaller boy looked at the youth and the girl as they continued taunting. He really wished he wasn't there. He wished he could run away, but something wouldn't allow him to, and eventually he could take no more. He looked around, eagerly hunting for something, and then spotted an object on the ground close by. He stooped. He picked it up. "I'll use this," he shouted defiantly. "I wonder what they're up to," said Cornelius. The boy looked up into Cornelius's face, drew back his arm, and flung the object with all his might. The large, jagged stone hurtled through the air and struck Cornelius with considerable force. "Ouch!" Cornelius screamed as the sharp object hit him. The stone crashed against the glass, sending large, ugly cracks spreading in all directions. The 2 children and the youths fled swiftly, and sounds of laughter drowned the gentle sobbing of Cornelius. Time passed. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed. The commuters complained bitterly to the station master and his staff about the clock, and many of them were very rude. Everyone now ignored Cornelius. The station master became very resentful, and he told everyone that he had far too much work to do and wasn't going to waste his time on an old clock that no longer worked properly. Everybody complained. Everybody grumbled. But nobody did anything. Nobody, that is, except an old lady who felt sad that such a fine clock had been so sadly neglected for such a long time. She decided that the only solution was to go and find the makers of such a unique timepiece. She went to the station master first, but he had no clue as to the whereabouts of the people who had made the clock. The old lady walked out to the front of the station and looked up into Cornelius's sad eyes. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "I'll find somebody to put you right." Cornelius was shocked and surprised that someone was actually talking to him. He cleared his works in a hesitant voice, said, "Hello." The old lady was astonished. She had heard no sound from the clock for a very long time. "Hello," she replied gently. Cornelius looked at her through the deep cracks in the glass. He could barely see her through the dirt that was clinging to his face. "Who are you?" he asked. "Just someone who cares," said the gentle voice. "What do you want?" "I want to help you. I want to find out where you came from if I can. I want to bring someone here who can repair you." "It's too late," said Cornelius. "I've been like this for such a long time, I can barely remember the time when I worked properly." "We can't give up. We must try," said the old lady. "I will try and find out where you came from." "Oh, don't go. There's a name below my eyes. I remember seeing it when I was being made. The clockmaker placed it on me after they pieced me together." "Can you remember what it says?" said the old lady anxiously. "I can't see it from down here." Cornelius thought deeply. He remembered the room filled with all the beautiful clocks and watches he could ever imagine. He remembered the kind clockmaker and his assistant, who treated him so well. And then he remembered the words they'd written below his eyes, and he almost burst with excitement. I remember, he said. It said Cornelius, made by the Paradise Lane Clock Company. Repeated the old lady thoughtfully. Paradise Lane. I'm not sure where that is, but don't worry. I'll find out. And when I do, I shall go and see who they can send to help you. Time passed, and the old lady asked many people about the workshop in Paradise Lane. Most people said, I've never heard of such a place, and even the town guide that she had bought seemed to no longer bear its name. It was only after a while that she was passing an old antique shop and in one of the city's narrow lanes. There in the window stood an old clock. It was beautiful. But what really caught her eye was the little plaque below which said, Paradise Lane Clock Company. The old lady hurriedly went inside to see if she could find out more. The antique shop owner was an elderly man. He had ruffled grey hair and a wrinkled face, and he stood behind the counter and peered through his glasses at the old lady. Can I be of assistance, madam? He asked politely. They chatted for a while, and the old antique shop owner remembered Paradise Lane and suggested they both go and see if the clockmaker's workshop was still there. I haven't been down there for years and years, he said. Come on, jump in my car. We'll go and see if I remember where it is. After a while, the antique shop owner remembered a turning down to a small roundabout. I think it's down here, he said. Then he saw at the end of the lane a tall lamppost, and there on a faded sign which read Paradise Lane. It's down here, it's down here. A little way down the lane, they came upon a workshop. From the outside, it seemed no different to all the other grey buildings. But as they turned the handle and tried the door, a shaft of the most radiant bright light struck them. The strange thing was that despite its brightness, neither of them found it hard to see. In fact, they both said that they could see far more clearly than they had done for many, many years. Once inside, they closed the door behind them and stood gazing at the tremendous beauty that surrounded them. Watches and clocks ticked and tocked in perfect harmony, and on the stroke of the hour, the most glorious symphony of noise resounded. From deep within the workshop, a door opened, and through it came a tall man dressed in a long white working overall. He looked at the pair and smiled. Ah, you've come at last, he said. The two of them looked at each other and then in turn at the clockmaker. They certainly hadn't warned him that they were coming, so how could he have been expecting them? I've been waiting for you to come for a very long time, said the clockmaker sadly. His face quickly changed into a broad smile. You see, he continued, we thought that nobody cared any more. No one's come to our workshop for some time now. Seeing you here proves that there are still people who care. You are most welcome. The old lady and the antique shop owner told them the sad story of Cornelius and how he had been so badly neglected. They told them about their journey to the workshop and how none of the road maps had Paradise Lane marked. They noticed the sad look which the clockmaker and his assistant had on their faces. And when they'd finished, the clockmaker rose slowly from his chair and paced thoughtfully across the room. Don't worry about Cornelius, he began. We'll come and repair him very soon, and on him we shall place a new piece of unbreakable glass. His face will shine, and within him we'll put an everlasting cog. the old lady and the pawnbroker, the antique shop owner, were relieved to hear these words. And even though they hadn't quite understood everything that they'd been told, they knew that they'd succeeded in the task they'd set out to do. They rose from their seats, made their way back onto the grey pavement outside and stood by the antique shop owner's car. He searched for his keys and took them out of his long black coat. They thanked the clockmaker and his assistant. He unlocked the doors and the two visitors climbed back in. The engine started and together they made their way back home. Their sight, which had seemed so much clearer when they were inside, faded again as the greyness of the city swept in around them. Rain was falling very steadily as the clockmaker's van pulled up outside the station some time later. It was a drenching rain which soaked through your clothes and made them cling to your body. The clockmaker's assistant looked at the weather outside. He hadn't looked forward to this job, but when he saw how sad Cornelius looked, he swung open the van door and climbed down onto the wet pavement below. Water filled his shoes almost instantly. The rain made his hair stick to his face, and very soon they were soaked through to the skin. But Cornelius was thrilled when he saw a ladder being placed on the wall to his side. As the clockmaker's assistant climbed up the rungs, Cornelius smiled nervously. "Don't be frightened," reassured the assistant. "Me and the clockmaker will soon have you repaired." They loaded Cornelius into the van and returned to the workshop. It took many hours to put Cornelius right. The driving rain trickled down the workshop windows and never seemed to let up for more than a few minutes. But at length, some days later, 3 to be precise, the job was complete. "I've finished, Cornelius. I've finished. You look resplendent again." Cornelius was so happy. A while later, Cornelius watched as the clockmaker and his assistant loaded the ladder and all of his equipment back onto the van. He felt well again, better than he'd done for such a long time, perhaps better than he'd ever done before. "They're going to take me back to the station," he thought, "back to where I've come from." The van pulled away, but instead of going to the station, it stopped on the corner. "You're not going back to the station, Cornelius," said the clockmaker. "The people will now see you in a different place, here on the corner. You will show everyone the direction to Paradise Lane. You will be the first face that they see. You will welcome them. They can come and visit my workshop and see once again all the wonderful clocks and timepieces that we have designed. They can appreciate the value of time and just how wonderful it can be." And there Cornelius stands to this day, a smile on his face and a joyful rhythm in his heart. And just like Jesus, he shows everyone the way down Paradise Lane. Hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope you can see that Paradise Lane is a wonderful place to be. And the clockmaker and his assistant can tell the most wonderful stories.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. We're looking at time today, but time feels very strange at the moment, doesn't it? I wonder when we look back at these messy church videos that we've done during this period, whether we'll be able to order them by how long everyone's hair is or how grey their roots are. It's quite hard to measure time at the moment because we're so out of our normal routines. If we've been meeting together today, I was going to use this game as one of our activities. Now on this game, I'm not sure how clearly you can see it, there are 6 clocks. And the idea is that you have to find the cards that match the clocks. Now, some of the activities on these cards we wouldn't be able to do at the moment. We can't go bowling, for example, or go on a school trip. But there are lots of other things that are on these cards that we can do. We can still phone our friends and play games and that sort of thing. And it got me thinking that if we were doing a card like this for our usual messy church, that we'd have to have all sorts of timings on here too. There's time to put the oven on, time to put the food in, time to set up the craft activities, time for the yellow bands to go upstairs, time for us all to get together for our celebration time, and time for us to have our meal together. And those times are all really important. So if we were going to do a card for messy church at the moment, that would look quite different too. We can't offer hospitality at the moment. We can't check in with how you're doing, and that's hard. We don't like these one-way conversations or being able to see ourselves on the screen while we're talking. But on our messy church card, there would be things that we do still want. We still want to have fun and creativity. We still want to meet together as a messy church of all ages, even if it's in a different way. We still want to celebrate God through stories and songs, even if we're not all doing messy church at the same time. Appreciating that time is God's gift, and using and sharing our time well is as important as ever. In the Bible, God says that there is a time for everything. I wonder what this time will look like when we reflect back on it. Maybe it'll be a time to rediscover old toys and games, or boxes of photos in my case. Maybe it'll be a time to make some new family traditions, such as going for bike rides or local walks or playing volleyball on the trampoline. Maybe it'll be a time to take stock of how busy our lives normally are and whether all those things are really essential. A time to be kind, both to ourselves and to each other. God does know that this time is hard, and he wants us to know that he is walking with us and longs for us to trust him when it's difficult. We're going to pray together now, and we're going to finish that with our rousing messy church amen. So be ready for that. Okay, let's pray. Dear God, time seems so strange at the moment when all our routines are out of kilter. I pray that we will know that you are with us when we are finding it tough, and that we will be able to find value in this time. Give us all the love and patience that we need, both for this season and for the time ahead. Are you ready? Amen. Take care. And remember, as Muhammad Ali once famously said, don't count the days, make the days count. See you soon.